Okay. Good evening, mateys. Welcome to Roll for Discussion. We are but a humble group of D&D players/DMs with varied degrees of experience who like to get together and talk about the TTRPG, that is Dungeons & Dragons. This evening's topic will be prep and improv. We'll start our talks with a little segment I like to call This Week as a Geek. We'll then delve into our main topic and then wrap everything up with a D&D quiz known as Mastering the Dungeon. While you're watching or listening, you can take part as well by leaving a comment in chat. It could be suggestions for future topics, questions for the group, your views on what we're talking about, answers for the quiz, or just random facts and nonsense. All I ask is that you keep it civil and polite. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. This is Roll for Discussion. Joining me on this evening's session, we have the following players. We've got Jason Pizza Man, our first of two Americans with the most energy of any man I know. Good evening, buddy. How you doing?
I am low on energy. I'm just kidding. I have just had a cup of coffee and I'm ready to go, baby. Let's do it. Yes, I am American.
We also have Pete, our resident rules lawyer. How are you doing, bud?
That is me, and I'm tired. I went to bed at about 3:30 this morning, and I've been up since 8, so I'm functioning on about 4 hours sleep.
Well,
So
I appreciate
here I am.
Appreciate you making the effort.
If I'm slow later, that is why. All right, let's do this.
Let's do this. Next up, we also have our monk with the mouth, Nathan. How you doing, mate?
I'm doing alright. Just because you're clear before, your mic also moves as you move it, so you're good with not disappearing. It doesn't teleport.
Oh, good. Good to know. Thank you very much for that. Next up, we have Schnitzel, our second American and the newest of the members with the D&D enthusiasm. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Rugby is just football with wrestling. You're welcome.
Oh, thank you very much for that. And finally, we have Rumpel, our rising DM star. How are you doing tonight, man?
I was doing real well up until that last point, and I'm going to need a moment just to get over what you just said, because I'm clearly not American. I disagree completely.
I'm sure we can have a civilized discussion.
Back to the topic.
Right. Now we got the intros out the way. We're going to get into our first segment, which we call This Week as a Geek. Now, I know not all of you have something to contribute to this, so we're just going to go around the table for those that have. So we'll start off with Jason. What have you been up to, mate, this week as a geek?
Well, as plenty of you know, I have a YouTube channel, and on that YouTube channel, I tend to play a lot of Fall Guys, because it's the perfect game to rage at, because people are idiots and I hate them. So, but finally, after grinding away for a long time, I unlocked my fish costume. Okay, it's not as epic as as probably everyone else's, but I spent a long time grinding for that stupid fish costume. You realize how many wins I had to get?
Be proud of it, mate. Be proud of the fish costume.
I will wear that fish costume with pride.
When are you next going to do a live stream so we can see it in all its glory?
Possibly next week. I will have to look and see if I'm free. Oftentimes I don't really plan the streams. I'm just like, hey, anyone want to play Fall Guys tonight for a stream? So, but yeah, keep an eye on my channel, Jason Pizza Man, if you want to keep up with all my beautiful streams and watching me scream and rage at people. Yeah, so come join the fun.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, bud. And we'll move on to Pete. What have you been up to this week as a geek?
I was a little longer than a week ago, but I was part of a Call of Cthulhu one-shot recently, and that went really well. And I've recently been making my Warhammer Tyranid army a ton. I spray painted it for the first time today, and it wasn't complete garbage. So I'll take that as a win. But yeah, that's my geekiness this week.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, buddy. We'll move on to Nathan. What have you been up to this week, bud?
This week Pacific. It's been quite a bit. I think I've just been mostly streaming over on Twitch. Been then hosting it back onto my YouTube channel for people who have missed out on me playing Rage. And the last session I did while I play Rage, if you watch the stream back, I had anxiety the entire time I was doing the one bloody bit.
What exactly was causing your anxiety?
So there's a hospital bit where you have to go and run through and kill a bunch of bloody can't remember what they're called off the top of my head now, but some infected people that come, so almost like zombies, but they're not called zombies. Pretty much, they're just running at you completely, and then there are these big, bulky ones with bigger guns, and they're annoying to kill. And I'm just running around with a shotgun the entire time, scared out of my butt. And then there's this big bloody titan that he's just like, okay, now I have a rocket launcher. Just the entire time I was doing it, I was just anxious.
All right.
The entire time I'm running through, you just see my face going.
If people wanted to come and see you're having anxiety moments while you play Rage, where could they find you?
You can go find me on twitch.tv/Nathan Goes Live. But if you haven't been able to watch on Twitch, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is the former turn. Nathan went live instead. Hey.
Excellent. Thank you very much, bud. Now, finally, on to Rumpel. What have you been up to this week as a geek, bud?
Well, I am currently in the process of planning a one-shot, which I believe might be on your stream next week, potentially. I think so.
I believe that is correct. It's for Saturday.
Yes. And yeah, I've designed my siege mechanic for D&D, so I hope it goes well. There's a few new layers and stuff, so if anyone who's watching now happens to watch that and thinks it's cool, or, you know, has some pointers, some tips, or wants to try it out, let me know, because I'm planning to build a bit of a website for it and let people try it out, if it works. So we shall see. Yeah.
Fantastic. Have you thought of a name that you're going to call this like setup that you've got for it?
I haven't got one yet. I will do by Saturday, though. So it might be in the comments. Let's put it in the comments later, if I can think of one.
All right, excellent. Looking forward to it. Yeah, that's going to be next week. I'll be posting on the channel, I'd say in the next day or two, notification if anyone is interested in coming to see this. Is a whole new thing that Rumpel has set up. So yeah, we'll see how that plays out. Well, thank you very much, Rumpel. So yeah, we'll go on to myself. So this spans just a little bit more than a week. This is probably the last couple of weeks. I got into the trend, I don't know if any of you guys have seen this, of the President's AI. Now this AI voice software has been going around for quite a bit lately. And I was with, like, there was a few, like maybe 3 or 4 other YouTubers that was doing it, and I thought, yeah, you know, this is something that'd be pretty cool to try in regards to the President's Play Dungeons and Dragons. So I started a series of that, and that has really taken off. It put the perspective. About just over 2 weeks ago, the channel Crafted UG was sitting at 51 subscribers, and at last count, I believe it's now 1140 something. I can't remember actually off the top of my head. It's been absolutely amazing. There's been a great response from people now. A lot of people are really enjoying it, and it's a lot of fun to make. It takes several hours, if not a few days, to make each episode. So I'm trying to find ways to. I'm trying to find ways to like speed it up whilst maintaining the quality, but it's definitely worth a laugh. If anyone is watching, haven't seen it yet, please go and check it out on the channel. It's, as I said, it's a lot of fun. And that has been This Week as a Geek. And now on to our main topic. We're going to be talking about prep and improv. And as is common custom, I'm going to revert to our rules lawyer, Pete, to give us a definition. What is preparation and improvisation?
Well, I imagine you're asking for it in the context of a DM, I believe, or you're asking for it just as a general kind of idea.
not sure if the two are mutually exclusive.
Well, wow. Okay, so my understanding, preparation is obviously it's how much you prepare, how much you have written down, or you're planning that you're going to do, whether that be short term or long term. And improv is obviously improvisation, which is about making things up on the spot because of one reason or another. Good times.
All right, brilliant. Well, thank you very much. So, guys, I'll open up with the first question. Now, this will probably mainly apply if you're a dungeon master, but you could also apply this to being a player. How much time would you give yourselves to prepare for a game? This is open. This is open question. So, if anyone wants to jump in first, just let me know.
I mean, I'll start. Because I'm currently planning a game, so I feel that makes sense. But I've been planning this. If you take all the other bits I'm adding to the game itself, if you just took it as a standard game, about a month or so, which is similar to what I planned for the last game I did, which was my first one. So I reckon it depends how much you want to do, how much of a prepper you are, but I think if you give yourself a month from thinking this is a cool story to running the game, I think that gives you more than enough time. Obviously, you don't have to do a whole month, but for me, that's just a good set of time where you can plan out characters, story arcs, locations, NPCs, monsters, interactions, encounters. It's a good chunk of time for you to sit down and clear it all out. So I'll go a month.
All right, 1 month. Do you think that's going to be that's plenty of time then to obviously get everything you need together for an upcoming game?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Jason, what about yourself?
For me, see, it's different for me because I've been doing a lot of pre-made modules, and so for those, I think the prep work it's a little bit easier possibly because you don't have to come up with stuff. You just have to okay, what does the book say, what does it, and for anyone that's thinking oh, I could just sit down and just run a game out of a book, I don't even have to. No, you do have to prep. Don't get me wrong, you do have to prep, take notes, make sure you know the world. I'll be while I'm sitting at work, I'll be listening to YouTube videos going through the world. One guy I would recommend if you're running a pre-made module is No Fun Allowed. He's really good. That's who I've been listening to for the module that I've been running. But you still need to prep, take notes, but if you're doing a pre-made module, I would argue to say that you need to do, I'd say maybe even less. I know Rumpel said a month, but possibly 2 weeks ish. Maybe, and it also depends on how complicated the encounters that your characters, or rather your players, are going to be coming up against. So I don't think it's a one size fits all thing. I think you have to kind of gauge it by the encounter, by the story, and also even by your players. Do you expect your players to make it through a bunch of to make it very far in the story, or do you expect that it'll take them a little bit? So it's really you have to gauge it. But for me, I usually only spend maybe a week or two preparing for my games, but that's just me.
No, fair enough. I mean, that's why we have this discussion, don't we, to get very different opinions on what people feel is sort of an adequate amount of time to get prepared for this sort of thing. So 2 weeks, that's not too bad, especially if like you said, if you're running something that's already pre-made. It cuts down the amount of time what you would say you reasonably need to prepare for it. So you would go with about 2 weeks if it was a pre-made module.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're not sure if something, I have you can have the book next to you the whole time. You just tell your players, hey, give me 1 second, just look something up, and then so you got your cheat sheet right there in the form of a whole book.
Yeah, exactly. All right,
but still take notes.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a top tip there. Take notes. Pete, how about yourself?
Well, I think it depends massively. I mean, obviously, if you're doing a one shot, it's going to be different to a full campaign, or if you're doing like a pre-written campaign versus one that you've homebrewed, then it's going to be a very different kind of length of time as well. I think as Rumpel said, like Rumpel said, a month is probably a good basis for a lot of them, and then you can kind of reduce from there, I think, depending on what the task is. But then obviously I think the most important part about prep work isn't just the bit before the campaign starts, it's the prep work you do between each session, which I think is the bit which is the bit that most people find a bit overwhelming and a bit draining, is the part in between where you have to spend a good few hours each week making the story, fitting things together, depending on what the party's done the previous session.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think it sort of depends, doesn't it? If you've made a bit of a sandbox game or more of a linear one, they can really vary the sort of the length of time that you'll end up putting into preparing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, fantastic. How about yourself, Nathan? I know obviously you haven't DM'd any games, but I was wondering, like, from the perspective of a player, say a game's coming up in the next 2 weeks, what would you do in the way of prepping as a player?
But yeah,
There's two Nathans here.
yes. Hello, I'm Nathan.
I will refer to second Nathan, the American one, as Schnitzel, and so I'll refer to the UK one as Nathan. So you were saying,
Yeah.
Nathan.
For me, it's quite difficult because for me, my brain don't work like normal people do because I have a form of ADHD. But for me, it's more of just, I guess, with just getting your character in your head, what they're going to do, maybe, and possibly how you get their mindset in. I'm guessing, and make sure you got your notes, what you remember from what happened last time in your head, or you're looking back at your notes if you've written them, or if you've poorly written them. Pointing at myself.
No, but
yeah,
I think you make a good point. You definitely make a good point there. Like trying to remember what happened in the previous session. Obviously, you're more likely going to have a recap at the beginning of the following session. But trying to get yourself all clued up, again, going back to what was mentioned earlier about taking notes. If you've got that stuff written down, you can sort of get a recap going in your head, like, and just in case, because you might find that, I know this has definitely happened with me when I've done a recap. There's been things where I've forgotten to mention something, but then there's a player who's remembered a specific thing that has taken place a couple of sessions beforehand, and so that really helps. As long as everyone does their bit. So I do think it's really important that players do take part in that bit of prep. But I think you make some good points on that.
Yeah, it's just difficult I think for me, because I just try to get understanding of what my stance is and what my character's doing as well.
Yeah, of course.
Down. It's hard for me because I don't know where to stand in this.
What about yourself, Schnitzel? Again, I know you're not a DM. You'd be doing this from the perspective of a player. What sort of things would you look at doing prepping that maybe haven't already been mentioned?
Well, personally, I am a bigger fan of innovation and improvisation than prepping. Like, you should have a baseline, but I always enjoy D&D the most when it goes a little bit off the rails, and the plan that the D&D Dungeon Master had, he goes, well, I had all this plan, but we actually did this because it feels so much more natural, because a story can sometimes, like, almost trap ourselves into a narrative that may not make sense for a certain character or a person. Mm-hmm. So planning is all good, and I believe it's necessary, but also the improvisation is the best part, in my opinion, because it's a story you get to write. It's not just the DM writing it. Every single character writes a part of it. So that's what I enjoy the most out of it.
Yeah, that is obviously a really good point. That is obviously the second part of all this is the improvising part, which we're going to get to in just a moment. So has anyone else got any thoughts on just the idea about like how much time you think would be adequate? Now we've got again a bit of a varied here. If we're looking at homebrew, you're probably looking at maybe adding more time, or maybe even less time. If you've designed the game, maybe you've already got so much already in place that the initial prep work might be quite large. Like I said, so Rumpel, you're obviously prepping for your first one shot on this one, so you've obviously put a lot more time into it. But say, for instance, you've done the first one, now you're going to start prepping for like the campaign that might continue the story, and you're going to do it on like a bi-weekly basis. How much do you think 2 weeks would be enough, or would you look at maybe putting the time between sessions at a longer distance?
No, I think 2 weeks would be fine for obviously the gap between a like campaign session, because I think from there you can really narrow down what is kind of going to happen. Like from location to location, players starting in point A can only go so far. You don't need to plan the whole world. They can only get to X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. And this where for like if you take the month time frame that I said earlier, do that for planning the more overarching stuff. Your big story, your kind of more the aspects of the wider world. For then you kind of your 2 weeks between sessions, do like right. So my players are in city, whatever here. You know, the story arc has them fighting this person who has escaped to another place. Are they going to go there? Maybe they want to find some allies first in the city, so are they going to stay there? But you can narrow it down into certain little points, so you don't need to worry about what's happening 200 miles away in this other city that you thought of because it's cool. 2 weeks I think is fine. Just if you stay focused and go. Yeah, I'm rambling a bit now, but no, I think we're all good with that. I've lost my train of thought. Someone help!
Don't worry, buddy. I got you. So I'll go with my own campaign that I run with several of you in here and a few others that aren't in the podcast at the moment. We generally go every 2 weeks on the campaign, and I would say even though I have the 2 weeks to do it, I don't necessarily use up 2 weeks to plan. So how I'll sort of do it is like after the session's ended, the next day I will look over my notes, see. I would have already. So when I did, I'm going all over the place now. When I did my initial setup, I planned for 2 or 3 sessions, and then got wildly surprised when all of you just smashed through all 3 within a single session. I realised I hadn't prepped well enough at all. So then I started to over prep, and I went really far ahead as where I saw this all end up going. And then it was a case of filling in the blanks as each session went along. So we get to the end of a session, and I look over my notes and I think about what I have planned coming up, and then look at is this likely to be something the party's going to come across in the next session, or is it something I think maybe it's going to lead up to a later point. I try to leave a bit of open room for variation, because obviously players have got to make all kinds of decisions, some of which you haven't planned for at all, which we'll get into with the improv. When it comes to actually then setting everything up, I don't tend to actually prep until maybe the last 2 or 3 days before the session, only because I will start making plans, say in the first week. By the second week, I've already scrapped about 75% of it, because I've spent so much time looking over it, and I've realised I can't do long-term prep. It just does not work. I seem to work on a much better basis when I'm on limited time. So when I know I've only got a few days, that's when my brain goes into overdrive, and I suddenly got right, okay, we could do this, I've got this bit written up. And then as I've got all these ideas, and it's yes, okay, this all works really well. Then I'm sitting there, I'm going, I've only got 6 hours before the session starts, and I haven't actually put anything together on Roll20. Right, I'm going to lock myself away for the rest of the day and start getting the music, the maps, the little icons and all the tables and whatnot.
There's some ADHD vibes right there because usually people like me just leave shit like that to like last bit. They're like, yes, pressure, let's go.
I don't know what it is. I just generally think that when I know the pressure is on, that's when my brain really kicks in. If I know I've got an ample amount of time, I can't seem to get like the really good like moments. Like, so if we were to look back at any of like the top moments that we've had in the session, in the campaign, every time it's been something that's been particularly good. Most of the time it's something that I've prepped either very little for or something that I've improvised. You know, so I appreciate, you know, obviously as people, everyone's obviously different with how they go about it, and some people will take longer to put things together. But it's just for my side of it, I think I fall more on improv than I do with prep. But that being said, what would you guys say are some of the advantages or disadvantages to over prepping or no prepping? And I'm going to leave this open. So who would like to start us off? What on their views on it?
I have some.
Yeah, go for it.
I think it's really hard to find the right balance. I think over prepping can cause you to almost fixate on what you had planned, and you'll either end up railroading your party, which, you know, there's an episode on earlier on, guys, if you're interested in railroading, but or you'll gotta plug in your own show. Or you'll either railroad the party, or you'll not have a clue what you're doing if you rely too hard on the plans that you have made, because you won't know how to go off from those plans.
Yeah.
So I think but I think going all improv is just risky, because then there are going to be times when it's stuff that's numbers based, or it's stuff that's like you need to balance based or something like that, in which case it's like, unless you are an incredibly talented DM, you're not going to be able to turn around and just pull an encounter out of the air that's perfectly balanced in a way that's thrilling for everybody, but also isn't just a pushover, isn't going to one-shot them. So it's finding that balance, I think, which is really important.
I think you do touch upon something there. So when it comes to things like monsters, or at least the encounters, yes, I definitely think at least trying to put some improv into that. So when I say when I say, sorry, put some prep into that. When I say I talk about the improv, I more refer to the story, like what actions like the players are making, and like how the characters are going to like respond to it, and I have like a vague idea of like the direction I want them to go, but I find it's easier just to sort of go with the flow and just like see how it sort of plays out. And I think one of the good things though about I'd say advantage with over prepping, if you've made multiple different scenarios, for instance, of what might happen in a certain encounter, and most of them, if not all of them, don't happen, as long as it's not too directly tied to the actual story, you could always pull that back and throw that in at another point later on down the line.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, I fully get that. I think I'm just thinking like over prepping is in if you get very specific. I think that's why when I think over prepping, I think very specific. Like they're going to do this, and then they're going to do this, and then they're going to do this. If you start prepping in that manner, because you're like, they'll do this, and then they'll speak to this character, which means I can then lead them down this. You end up just going. To you, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect logical sense, but everyone else it might not, and that's where the over prepping can kind of fall down. Is if you start. If you do your, like you said, the prepping of like multiple different methods, hopefully they'll pick something that you chose. But also, at that point, it's also about the balance of how much work you're actually doing. Like, still have a social life.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't, again, if you're restricted on time, because I know we've obviously been talking about 2 weeks minimum between sessions, but there are going to be people that are doing games on a weekly basis. So I'm wondering, you know, if the prep work there, like how flexible do you need to be with it, and how in depth can you really go? Realistically, if you know, obviously if you're much younger, say you're in like college or school or something, you know, realistically you would have more time than someone who's got a full-time job or a family to look after in order to actually start getting these things sorted. So I think it would be quite nice if we could try to get I mean, if there's anyone in the chat at the moment who does do their own games and stuff and as sort of falls in any of the categories I just said there, say if you're basically got a week between games, how do you go about getting your prep work done? Let us know. But what would you say, Pete, there would be... So we were just talking about over-prepping, but what would you think about if you had someone who didn't do any prepping, and they were relying entirely on improv? What do you think the advantages or disadvantages would be on that?
I mean, the advantages are obviously you're not limiting yourself, which can always be quite good. But the disadvantage, I think I was saying earlier, is like, that's hard to do. It is so hard to just improvise because like you need so much knowledge and so much awareness of everything that's going on, both within the game, around the game, and everything. And it's not an easy thing to do. I would never even attempt to do entirely improvised. I learned quite early on when I was DMing, like, try not to plan too much or don't expect them to go down a certain path. I think that's it. It's the expectation that they're going to go down a certain path from your prepping, which will screw you. But yeah, so that's why improvisation is good, but solely relying on one or the other is just going to trap you. Yeah. At least in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's a solid points there. Has anybody got any counterpoints or anything they want to add onto what me and Pete were just saying?
I'm thinking both very good points and agree 100% with both of you. I would just a point on improv that I think, because I was someone coming into my first game, I would say I over prepped, not to the point where I wanted to railroad it. It was just I had 10 different scenarios in my head. If they went this way, they did that. If they went that way, they did that. Because I didn't want to be blindsided, and I didn't want to end up in that scenario where I was like, "Oh my god, what do I do?" Because I hated the idea of trying to improvise it because I'm not an actor and I hated drama at school and I thought I'd be terrible at that. So I planned for options galore going on. But one thing I found, and I think it's a good takeaway for someone, and it's something I realised quite quickly, is improv is best when it comes naturally. And I end improvising way more than I ever thought I would. I never planned to. I never thought, "Oh, I'll improvise this bit." It wasn't. I had things that I wrote down for. "Oh, they'll find a letter and it will say this," but I ended up improvising the letter because it was like, actually, I don't like what I've written now, so screw it. I'm gonna say this, and it ended up being way better. So I think plan well, plan options. But if in the moment the plan doesn't fit, go with what's in your head. Because I think 9 times out of 10 it's going to be better. And it will fit well. Better than you thought. Because I surprised myself with how much I ended up improvising.
Well, that's pretty solid on that one. Anyone want to add anything to that? I guess not. Guys, by the rest of you, did you have any thoughts on advantages or disadvantages to over-prepping or no prepping?
I don't have anything myself, really.
No? Oh, fair enough. Well then,
I was gonna jump in if there's.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I don't know if you call it an advantage or disadvantage. It's more how you play it. But for over prepping, just like I said, I over prepped. I don't think over prepping is a bad thing at all. If you're someone that thinks I need to plan this out, that's fine. I don't think the prep is the bad thing. I think, like Pete said, you don't want to railroad.
Yeah.
So prep and prep and prep and prep if you're that kind of person that needs it and you want that clear cut down the line. But don't fixate it on it. It's just I'm tagging off Pete's thing. Prep as much as you like, even if that is months and months and months. But just be prepared and don't say no to your players when they do something else. Roll with it, because you'll end up finding something arguably probably better than you planned for.
I also think, that there's a big, I think, which something which I think is quite interesting, is I can tell Rumpel is talking from, at least I believe, the point of view of a one-shot, and I'm talking from the point of view of, like, a longer campaign, and they become very different beasts, which I think is quite interesting. Like, you can really prep for a one-shot because you know where they're going, and you know what they're doing, and what their most of the plan is. Like, you know they're going to this town, you know what their goal is there, etc., etc. So that can help shape the planning quite well. But I personally have made the mistake in a long drawn out campaign where I've been like, all right, cool, after they finish this session, I imagine they're going to do this in this session and this in the next session after that, and that's where I messed myself over, because it was like, cool, they didn't do that. They completely went off script, and that's 2 days. That's like 2 sessions worth of prep just binned because it's not going to make sense anymore. And I think that's like, that's where I think prepping becomes the issue. Is when it's more on a campaign, it becomes a problem with over prepping, because that's when you can end up just wasting time on stuff that will never be used because your players improvising around a different point that you didn't even realize was something they would notice.
That is a very good point. And can we do this again? Can we redo this episode when I've run a campaign, and then we'll see what I think? Because, Pete, you're right. I'm coming from 100% a one-shot point of view.
It's just part 2 to prep an improv with just Pete and Rumpel.
I'd be interested to see how you felt about prepping, and because I'm struggling at the moment to prep a one-shot, because I'm struggling to, because I'm trying to do that one-shot we spoke about, but I'm struggling to sit down and go, all right, how exactly am I going to make this work? Because I think my brain is going, don't prep too much. Try and keep it as open as possible. But then I'm also going, yeah, great, but how does that work if I need to plan maps or plan encounters or plan challenges? Like, how do I fit that well enough? And I think that's what's really really interesting, is because I made the mistake of, my brain has gone into the, don't prep too much, don't plan too much, kind of let them lead and then fill in the gaps, and then get a general idea what's happening next session, and then have a general idea where that's going to go. But don't really solidly prep too much, because then they'll completely, I think I planned 3-4 sessions ahead once at the start of my last campaign, and they're like, oh, we're going to go straight, I think I've mentioned the story, they were like, we're going to go straight to the capital, and I was like, oh, I thought you were going to go to a city nearby. Everything has changed now. Oops.
And I guess that is the beauty of what you can sort of expect when you have a bunch of players that have their own mindset of what they want to do.
Mm-hmm. Crazy.
Well, Jason, you've been a bit quiet. What are your thoughts on the idea about over prepping or no prepping at all?
Well, let me tell you a story. It's time for story time with Jason. So, I had a group come to my house to play D&D for a one-shot. I had planned, I don't even remember what the original story was. I had everything planned out. I was like, okay, I know the story. I know the setup. Here's what we're going to do, all right? And what's the typical... gang, what is the typical starting point for any Dungeons & Dragons adventures?
Oh, I'm going to say it's a tavern.
Exactly. They all meet in a tavern, and they proceed to murder every single person in the tavern before I can give them the quest. They flee the town, and I have to come up with an entirely new story on the fly at the game table.
Okay, Jason, did you have a session 0?
This was a one-shot.
But did you not have any sort of conversation about what the one-shot was about?
No, this was a one-shot.
You
I
could,
didn't know.
you could still talk to them and give them like a brief.
I didn't expect him to murder an entire tavern. I think somebody picked up a hobbit and threw him in the air, and someone baseball batted him into a wall. It caught me off guard.
To be fair, I think that was definitely a player thing. That was a player issue,
Oh, I know it
not
was
a
a player
DM
thing.
issue.
My 12-year-old brother was playing.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, you should have.
Yeah.
It's okay. No, it's 100% on you. You should have fully expected that from a bunch of 12-year-olds.
Okay, but everyone else was like over the age of 25.
Who started the fight? That's what who just started? Was it your brother that started
it was my brother. He started the fight, and then they all joined in, and then I like come up with this whole new thing. I was like, "Crap! What am I supposed to? What's the plan here?"
I'm gonna say that becomes like his own entire like ethical thing of like, okay, they've done this, right? You are now the pieces of crap that the guards and everyone else and some other heroes are now going to chase.
That's why they
You are now the
they
villain
murdered
of the
multiple people.
story.
Oh god, it hurts so much. It hurts.
Again, I don't
That's
even
the villain
remember
arc.
what the
That's
original
just the
story
villain.
was exactly. But I will say, Crafty, that the adventure they went on that I came up with on the fly, that made it into the Wyvern Warriors campaign that we were in.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so that was like, oh well, I mean, I've got this quest now. I'll send them on it.
Okay. To be fair, this opens up a really interesting question, which is maybe to do with prep and improv, but not really. But it's like, at what point can you as a DM be like, no, that doesn't happen. Let's have a quick chat. Right,
See,
well,
it's hard because I'm not a very confrontational person. I hate confrontation.
Well, this is it. That's why it's an interesting sort of thing. Like, I imagine, like, if I'd gone into Rumple's one shot and had from the get-go been like, I'm just gonna cause chaos. I know why I'm here. I know what my mission is, but like, forget that. I'm just gonna cause chaos and start murdering random citizens for no reason. I imagine Rumple would have just been like, Pete, like, what you doing? Like,
Well, and think about it, just going, what I would have done in that situation, just because it's an interesting thought, if from the starting village, you guys had kind of done that, gone on a bit of a rampage, I would have just had you stumble upon it, and then done the peep, what the hell was that, after the game?
afterwards, interesting.
Yeah, but
I
I
think-
think, because of the way the story went out, I would have just had you leave, end up in, like, and on your way out, you took, like, a left instead of a right, and ended up in the village, and it all went, and all hell broke loose. And just had you
Yeah.
basically fight your way out, and then gone, Pete, I hate you.
To be fair, I guess it depends if the rest of the party's still having fun. If everyone's still
Yeah.
having fun, maybe you go with it. But if it's sort of like sabotaging it, then maybe you kind of stop and go.
Yeah. If the other players are going, like, you've kind of ruined the game now, I'd be like, alright, no, let's take a step back. But if everyone's going along with it, you just go, alright. A bit like what Jason said, run with it and see what happens.
But
It turned out a really cool thing, I thought.
it does sound like it is obviously, it eventually led to something really good. Like, you got to use that storyline for another campaign, which is really good. It does sort of just smack in the face of like a disadvantage of non-prepping. So you prepped in a way for a particular story, and then it seems like you did, obviously you managed to pull it back by doing a lot of improv on the fly. Like you said, you ended up having to create a completely different story because of the actions of the players. But I think where you may have fallen short is what Pete was saying, is the failure to have the session zero, by not establishing from the start like the expectations of the game. It puts you sort of left it, you end up leaving it open to the players to be like, well, it doesn't seem to really matter what we're doing, so we're going to do this. Now, it could be just because you said it was your younger brother. Maybe he's a bit of an anarchist, and he was just like, burn it all to the ground. And and it maybe it wouldn't have mattered without a session zero.
Tie him up.
Just going to take this moment to just welcome a couple of people that have popped up in the chat. There's one player here. I'm very sorry, buddy. Your name is in a language I cannot read. Welcome. Says, I hope you don't forget about my Tarask. I have not. Those who don't realise, this fellow's mentioned a couple of times in some of the President D&D about bringing a Tarask in when I've asked the viewers like what kind of encounter should they come up with next. A Tarask, obviously, if those who don't know, is an incredibly powerful monster and is pretty much would be the end of the campaign fight. You don't want to be bringing it in a session 1 or session 2 or even like a session 12. You want to wait until right at the end. I have definitely not forgotten. And like I said, I believe I did respond to you. If I get to the point where I have no more ideas, or the viewers themselves have no more ideas, and we've gone quite far into the campaign, I promise you we will be looking at bringing a Tarask in. That should
or
be
just like, you know what? I decided I don't want to do YouTube anymore. I'm retiring. Goodbye, everybody.
I also do want to welcome as well Holly Link, who comes in with hello warriors. Hello matey, welcome to the stream. Hope you enjoy it. And yeah, thank you for taking part. If you really like this, please consider hitting that like button. But go back to what we were saying, guys. So we have touched upon it quite a bit about what to do if your players do go off script. So we've already got a very, very nice example of what Jason's done. Is effectively he's had to come up with an entire new storyline on the spot. Now, Jason, how long did that campaign ended up running after you came up with the new storyline?
I mean, that was the one shot.
Oh, sorry, that was just the one shot.
And it was, yeah, it was just a one shot. That's why I didn't have a session 0. I'm just like, oh, we'll just show and play some D&D. But I mean, it still ran for like a good 2 or 3 hours, maybe. I don't know. This was a while ago. But I mean, it flowed for if you know all odds against us. It flowed pretty well, and everyone seemed to have fun.
Well, that's the important thing, though, isn't it? At the end of the day, whether you over prep, you under prep, or you can improv your backside off. At the end of the day, as long as everyone walks away from the table, they've enjoyed themselves, everyone's had a good time, no one feels like their time's been wasted or anything, then you just call it what it is, as a success.
Exactly.
Yeah. But what about? Oh yeah, go on, Pete.
I was going to say, I think there's something that like I was thinking that I haven't mentioned yet. Is like, if this is something that will never apply to a one shot. Well, maybe, but will mostly apply to like campaigns. Is like, as the DM, like it's okay to be like, I have nothing planned for this. I'm not capable of making up on the spot because this was going to be a really complicated place or whatever. Like, it's okay to just be like, we're either going to take a break, or maybe you just draw the session to a close early and be like, cool, you've taken us down this other path. I need time to prep because I've got no prep for this. So we're gonna end this session early, and like it's okay. I think it's okay to do that, and I think that's something that like people can address in session 0. Is like, there might become a time where I just end the session early if you take us down a path I'm not ready for. But that is just an example of why like it's okay to do that. It's okay to like go down other paths, because as long as the DM knows that you're okay with them potentially ending the session early if it all goes to chaos.
That's a really solid point. I guess it also works if you're unable to improvise on the spot. So I guess if we go to Jason's example where we had to obviously come up with a whole new storyline, if he was unable to do that, it'd be a case of, guys, it's literally just as you're saying. So I'm just sort of just repeating right now. You just literally just turn around to the groups like, guys, haven't been able to prep for this, didn't know you were going to go down this route, so we're going to postpone the game. We can start up again in a couple of days or next week. But maybe at that point it would be worth then just saying to the group, guys, well, I don't know, that's the thing, because you don't want to give too much away to the players in terms of where you're planning the story to go. That you don't want them to have too much inside knowledge, because otherwise it could take the sort of fun out. So it's just, how would you sort of balance that out? Like, if you, again, we take your example, what your advice there, Pete, about you're saying to the group, we're going to propose this because I wasn't prepared for you going in this direction. How could you, I cannot phrase this question. How would you go about prepping the players so that they would know not to go too much off a tangent?
I think to keep them kind of where you've prepped for, you mean? How would you do that?
Yeah, pretty
Is that
much.
what you're asking? I think that's the problem. Is that's just writing, isn't it? It's you've got to make the plot point that pulls them in that direction interesting.
Yeah.
And that's where prep comes in. It's you've prepped enough around that area that you have a lot to say, that you have a lot to do, and it's an interesting plot thread that they'll want to pull, and that's what the difference is. It's yeah. If they go off on a tangent, it's nothing about your writing. It's just that specific thing didn't interest them as much as you thought it would, and that's where you need to go. All right, I'm going to take a minute. I mean, for a one shot, you could just be like, give me 5-10 minutes to figure out what I'm going to do, and then we'll continue. Like it. And if you're that good, then yeah, I don't think I could do that. But there are probably some DMs out there that can.
I will say,
as Jason has obviously done.
Yeah. I will say he's not here, but our resident counsellor, Mr. Chadstick, I would say he's extremely good when it comes to the improv. So you mentioned about that Call of Cthulhu game, which I was taking part in as well, and Rumpel. I believe you were the third character as well, were you not?
Yes, I was. That was a good game.
Yeah, it was really good. We do have that on the channel if anyone would like to go and watch that. Call of Cthulhu. First time me, Pete, or Rumpel ever played that type of game. Really enjoyed it. Kind of hoping we could do a continuation or another one of those at some point. But Chadstick was the DM for it. I think there was another term actually. He's not called DM in a Call of Cthulhu game. I can't remember off the top of my head what it's called. But anyway, besides the point. There was a bit where we were in a morgue and we were searching bodies and stuff, and we failed on searching a particular area, so we missed out on getting a sort of clue. So we ended up thinking that we had to go to this other location, which he's just sort of mentioned offhand, but we were convinced that was the place we needed to go. It had nothing to do with what the story was. Like it was not supposed to be involved with it, but he pulled it off in such a way that it wasn't until after the one shot when he told us, it's like, yeah, that whole bit was all made up because he hadn't planned for us to go in that direction. But that completely caught all of us off guard because we all thought that was part of the story because of just how well he managed to improvise. He, a couple of NPCs. He managed to tie in one of our backstories into it. It was really, really clever, and I'm sure. I believe he was saying he is working on I don't know what you call it, like a recap or something about that whole thing. So we'll probably get into more of discussion on that one. But just wanted to bring it up, give him a shout out, Chadstick. He is a writer, and it definitely showed with just the on the spot improvisation that he came up with. Nathan, Schnitzel, either of you guys got any examples about like using improv or anything like that? I know, Nathan, you sort of mentioned something before we started the podcast. You had a story or something you wanted to bring up.
I was wondering when you were going to bring up that today. I'm just going to mention, do you remember the grave crafty that you did?
Oh, no, why? Yes, okay.
Then, that's where we just decided, no, we're not going to that house. We are going to stay in this graveyard. We are stubborn pieces of crap. And you were just there like, no, you will leave this graveyard. You just kept diverting us out, and we were just there like, nope. And then you gave us names on the graves, and we were just there like, eh. Even Peter was there like, I'm not going to rule all of this, because this might be a clue. You're just there like, please, guys. And we're just there like, no.
So, to give a bit of context, I have, and I still have this, I'm going to be putting in a frame. I drew this island up on this huge piece of cardboard paper, of the area that these guys were all going to explore, and there was one little bit which was part of a side story which was to take part later on because I hadn't fully fleshed it out yet, but the party wanted to go there. So I had this graveyard with this gate, fencing going all the way around the front of it with a gate that they couldn't break, but they did manage to get over. I think it was like they climbed over the gate or something. They managed to get around it somehow. I can't remember the exact details. And so I tried on the spot, I tried to improvise, to try and find a creative way to get the party to get away from here by having them getting lost. Like there was a thick layer of fog, and didn't seem to matter what direction they went, they always ended up coming back to the entrance. And one of them had done what was it? What's the spell? It's like repair or something, or mending,
Yeah,
or something like that.
Repair or mending. I
So-
think it was mending.
Mending and on a gravestone, and so I gave him a name that was on there, and I didn't think anything of it at the time. I just thought I'll just give him a name. But then they kept going to other gravestones, like, right, and I fixed this gravestone, and I fixed this one, and the whole group is like, right, we're writing these names down. This must mean like directions that we're going in. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, no, this is all falling apart. This is not this is not how it was supposed to go. And
Genuine question: was that not planned?
No, he didn't
no,
plan it. He
none of that
didn't
was
plan it.
planned at all. I had completely had to improvise that entire thing. I was deliberately trying to get you guys to get the feeling that you can't go anywhere because you just keep going back to the grave. But I think you guys continued this on for like 10,
We
15
continued, and
minutes.
then I think
It was
yeah,
a while.
or one of the others broke the
So long.
I feel like I distinctly remember asking you afterwards, like, was that planned? I felt like you were trying to get rid of us. Because it was like, at the start, it was like, for the first, like, couple minutes, I was like, okay, this is normal. And then there was like a 5-6 period, I was like, okay, yeah, this is actually, like, he's actually trying to tell us to leave and come back later. I'm pretty sure. And then you started doing these gravestones with the names, and I was like, oh, maybe not. Maybe this means something. And then you start doing the gravestones with our names, and I was like, oh, okay, we were supposed to be here the entire time. I was just being paranoid. And then I asked you afterwards, and you were like, nope, didn't have anything, wasn't supposed to be there, absolute mess up. I was like, oh, okay, cool.
guys did.
Good time.
You guys did the quest
Yeah,
before
good
getting-
times.
We did it first because you were like, you were meant to get the quest, then go to the graveyard, but we did it reverse.
Yeah.
You were like, okay, I'm going to write people's names on the characters' names on the graves, and I think Cyril was the first to break the grave. I'm not 100% sure if he was. I think he's just like, yeah, he can now see everything, including the building, and just like, okay, there.
I think what happened is that
Get out there.
it had gotten to the point where I was accepting defeat, and like I knew it. Just I was realizing without flat out just saying to you guys that you're not supposed to be here yet, because I don't want to. I'm very much the kind of guy that doesn't want to take the players out of the game. I want to keep. If you're going to be immersed in it, I want to keep you immersed in it. So even though it might work against me, I will do everything I can not to go, right, guys, I got to stop you right here. You're not supposed to be here, because then it feels like it sort of ruins it a little bit, for at least for I know for me, and I want to keep the fun going for the players. So I sort of accepted defeat at this point. I was like, right, okay, I'm going to find a way that they're going to see something or another, and then I've got the fight all planned out, and I'll work it into it somehow. And I did manage to eventually work into it, but I think what I did was that after we had a certain amount of names, I was frantically writing notes and like drawing a diagram as to like, right, what directions are they all sort of going here? And it's like when they then finally found like a gravestone with their own name, and I think you might have been right, it might have been Cerrone or something. It's like when you break your own grave, you then start seeing visions of stuff. And so I started throwing things like from people's backstories. I think Rumpel, like your character, I was like, you see your family standing in front of you. They all look upset, or where, I can't even remember exactly how I described it, but I was like, I'm going to just throw these little bits in. And like when Cerrone broke it, like he had all these eyes watching him out of the darkness. And there's all these other kinds of bits and pieces. I'm just glad though, because I did just suddenly register, Rubble, you didn't realise that was all improv. So I'm very glad that actually worked out to the point that that you didn't know.
I thought that was brilliant. It, as you said, it
No,
tied
no,
in
it was
backstory. It was mysterious. It was unique. It was like, what's going on? And then there was all this stuff going on. It was like, good improv. Well done, Crafty. There you go. For people listening, going improv or prep, there's a very good example of when improv works.
It also works. It's just there, like, it's like, if you're scared and you're just there, like, please leave, your players might just bully you to give up. 'Cause I think he just bullied Crafty that session, and he's just there, like, I can't. Oh.
I tell you, I do actually have another example where I had to improvise a little bit. And I think that at least 3 of you are going to know about this one, was there was a particular moment where you got to a temple within a volcano, and you had come across a fire elemental. Now, I'd set this whole thing up It was going to be this big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
And
God,
this was
I remember
prepping, and it kind of ties in with a previous podcast we've done where we spoke about like problematic players, and it kind of also touches on like what do you do if a player goes off script. So we had a player who had decided to have a bit of a grudge against one of our other players for a throwaway comment that meant nothing. It's like the player's character said something like, "Oh, that was a stupid thing," or "You're being an idiot," or something like that. Again, it really meant nothing, but the other player took it very much to heart, and they decided to implement this grudge into their character. And it's like their story ended up becoming that they've just got it out for this other character. Any opportunities they had, they would try to harm them or put them in harm's way. And I could see this being, if this wasn't nipped in the bud, this was going to be a continuing, ongoing thing, and it was going to cause problems later on down the line. So I thought, right, I'm going to incorporate this into a particular moment when they come across this fire elemental, because they're going to be gathering these particular relics, and this fire elemental is guarding one of them. And they can avoid combat if they can agree, because I built this whole way that they could communicate with it, with like one of the characters had sort of developed like their spiritual connectivity, as it were. And then there was someone else who could translate for them. So I had this bit where the players could sort of work together to work out what was being said. Because when I was speaking as the elemental, I was just making up this language on the spot, and then I'd be typing it to another player who would then again like recite it back. So again, it was keeping everybody like immersed into the story. And what I was going to have do is that they could sense that there was this conflict between two players, and they had to work together in order to obtain the relic. So they got to put their differences aside and help each other out. Now, I had it so that magic was negated, while one of them was going to be lowered into a pit and the other one was going to take their hand and lower them in. So they had to rely on each other in order for this to work. The person that was being lowered into the pit was the one that had the grudge against the one lowering them into the pit. Now, they weren't there for the majority of the session, but I messaged them. I said, look, could you be in for this moment, because it's a big point moment and it's got you involved? So they said, yeah, they'll come along. I do the whole setup. I do the whole talking. I get the bit, all the stuff gets translated over. The character then decides they're going to leave. Not like in person they're leaving, like in game they're going to leave. So they're going to go out of the tunnel they came through. And I had it so that their elemental caused like a small landslide that closed the tunnel off. And they were going to try to then, because they were a sorcerer, so they were going to do like Misty Step and just go through that way. And I had it, and I mentioned now that no, magic had been negated. The character then decides, they announce, I'm going to go to sleep. And in the middle of this temple, where there's fire elemental who is getting the right ump right now, and all the players that are sort of like, what's going on? This player decides, no, I'm just going to lie down and go to sleep in the middle of all of this. And I've had to try to improvise as much as I can to try to get this going. I even announced, like, guys, you're going to have a 10-minute real life counter. If you don't come up with a solution, it's 10 minutes to convince these two players to get together. The elemental is going to lose his temper and he's going to end up he's going to kill people. And so there was this moment where everyone's sort of like panicking, and everyone like they're generally just trying to get this all sorted out. The character, the player / character was having none of it. In the end, I couldn't have even prepared for this. They ended up getting themselves killed by pulling out this bottle. It was a bottle of Ifriti, I think it was called, and it's like a little genie inside. And I had to roll a D100, and if it was like a 1 to 3. The genie would attack the person that opened it, and if it was another set of numbers, they would grant them some wishes, and then another set of numbers, it would like do some combat for them. They picked this up a few sessions beforehand, and the first thing they said was, "I'm going to give it to the player that I've got a problem with," because they're hoping that it would attack them. But I'd rolled the dice. I got it. I think I got a 2. So I was like, whoever opens this bottle, they're dead. And she just kept hold of the bottle, and it wasn't until this last moment. The elemental's about to lose his mind as she opens the bottle up and the Ifriti kills her. So the problem got resolved because the character now no longer had a grudge because the character was dead. But it was such an insane moment trying to improvise. But it just showed that didn't matter how much I improvised for it, I could not get the situation under control. And thankfully, she was the cause of her own demise. It's just one of those stories that I do like to keep bringing up because for me it's a highlight of the campaign.
It was. It's just that one was actually trying to compromise, and the other just was not moving from that moral.
Yeah, go on, Pete.
I'm just thinking when the DM's like, my highlight of the campaign was killing your character. Oh. It was not my character, but you know what I'm saying.
No, I mean, like I said, it wasn't the highlight itself. Wasn't that the character died? I was a bit saddened by that because everybody had managed to make it all the way to this point so far, and like we hadn't had any player deaths, and I was quite pleased with that. So I was really hoping that the character and the player was just going to see past this pointless grudge and just learn to work together. But unfortunately didn't. But it's just, I think it was like almost poetic, just the fact that they ended up being the core, like they were just their own downfall. I mean, we even prepped this whole thing about them having a vision of this happening, you know, them being lowered down and stuff. And
God, yeah.
And they took it to mean like, oh, this must mean I must kill him. It's like, no, like, how do you get that? You're helping each other. How did you interpret that to mean you must kill the other one? It was just a bit of a nuts moment.
I think the vision was like basically saying like, be nice because you know you need to trust each other. One day your life might be in their hands, and you want them to like you. And what they took was my life will one day be in their hands. Should probably kill them first.
Oh yeah. Does anybody else have? Anyone else have any examples of what to do if a player goes off script? So we go back onto the improvisation. If not, we'll just move on to the next part.
I had one, and it's almost the opposite issue, sort of, and it's that the previous session, basically this group was about to go in, basically confront this gang, this like criminal gang, and they'd spent the whole of the last session basically talking about how they were going to do it. So I'd be like, cool, time to prep. And I'd made back alleys, I'd made like their base of operations, I'd planned out different backstories for some of the characters that might come back if they escaped, and I'd done all this and I'd done all that, and I'd created character sheets for them, and then it got to the day, and one of them was like, oh, we're gonna go to the Crown Guard and be like, hey, help us. And I was like, they're not going to help you. There's no reason to. So they say no, basically. And then they basically went, all right, cool. We're not going to go fight the guard. And they went straight up to the gang's hideout and basically was like, come outside. No? Cool. And then just left. That was it. Hours of prep, so much sort of like excitement for this like confrontation, which was actually like a major part in one of the players' backstory, and another one of the players was just like, nope, we leave.
Come on out, we challenge you. Okay, never mind. Rough.
But just before I respond to that, I just want to respond to someone just posting in the comments. Holy Link, Yarl's President stuff is amazing. Thank you very much, mate. I really appreciate that. But you have to go. We're stopping by. Keep up the great work, Warriors. Have a blessed night and praise the Lord and Creator. Thank you very much. You indeed have a blessed night as well. And praise be to your Lord and Creator. Now go back to what you were saying, Pete. That's I love that. That's basically just gone for a completely different. It does still sort of come back, doesn't it? Like just when the players just go completely off script. I mean, it's not terrible if like you've given them a few choices and they don't decide to go in one direction. It doesn't have like a huge impact, but it's another when it could completely derail what you were planning. is just I guess at the end of the day there is no real right or wrong way of prepping for this unless you have just got immaculate brain power and you can write up like 1,000 scenarios and you know your players inside and out. You know exactly how they're gonna work.
I think this is it. It was just funny because it was like they had spent the second half of the previous session planning, the first hour of the next session planning, and then the moment they found out that they weren't just gonna get help from the guard who owed them nothing, they were like, one of them was like, "Cool, no, screw you, we're gonna." So I had to just make up a whole bunch, like, because I was like, that's gonna take all evening, and then I can determine what I'm prepping based off how that fight goes. If you slaughter them all, great. But if you start losing and have to make a break for it and leave the city, that's an entirely different situation. So I have to wait for the end of this session to work out what I'm doing next. And then they just ignored that entire bit and was like, cool. I was like, crap, there's like an hour left of this session. I have to just make up an hour's stuff. And yeah, I was literally like, as they were talking, I was like plotting, I was reading books, I was like putting a map together on Roll20 for them to have like a combat encounter. And yeah, it was crazy. Not a great time.
Does anybody else have anything else they would like to add in? I guess not. Then I guess before we just... Oh yeah, go on.
Oh, sorry, I was trying to unmute my mic in time. I do have one more story if you guys want to hear it.
Yes.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. This one also involves my little brother.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh no, the chaos resumes.
I may have told this story on a previous one talking about murder hobos. I don't remember all the topics we've covered, I'll be honest. But we had again, we started off in a tavern, and immediately my little brother says, I want to slap somebody. And keep in mind, he is a wizard with 6 hit points.
Oh, I can see where this is going.
Yes.
Oh,
and after, like, no, you cannot slap this person. I want to slap this person. Like, it went on for so long. And eventually I'm like, okay, you know what? Fine. You go up to the bartender and he says to you, listen, we've got this underground fighting ring if you want in. And of course he says, yeah, I want in. And my friend literally, he just looks at him and goes, listen. All he does is he just holds up 6 fingers and says, 6. But of course he's like, yeah, I want to fight. Like, all right. And in my mind, I'm like, you asked for this. So they lead him down into the underground of the bar where they have like this pit fighting ring or whatever. And he goes in with, he's like, I'm going to kill all of you or whatever. And they get in there and they bring out an orc to fight him. And he's like, I'm going to take you down. And my friend, Quarter, which Crafty, you know him, he's like, he has pity on him. So he's like, fine, I'll jump in and I'll help you. And like, oh, okay, it's a tag team. So there's 2 orcs. And the orc ends up pinning him through his shoulder and out through his foot, my friend Quarter, into the ground. He has like 1 hit point left, and my little brother, I don't think he went down at all somehow, but he ended up getting that was the one. After that whole ordeal, they somehow survived it, and throughout the rest of the encounter, just about, they ended up tying him up and tying him to the top of their chariot that they were like riding in, just so he wouldn't get them into any more trouble. And I know it's, you know, I had to to fit it into our topic, I had to improvise the entire fighting rink thing, but it's just, man, I just wanted to share that story because I just love how I just love, you know, sometimes just be careful what you wish for. Who says you can't learn moral lessons in a podcast about Dungeons and Dragons?
That is a very good point. Right, well, let's wrap up this main topic of prep and improv. Guys, do you have any top tips that you could give to like an upcoming DM or a player when it comes to prep and improv? Oh, we're going to go around the table because I don't like silence. We're going to start with Jason.
All right. Expect your players to do the stupidest thing you can think of and be willing to go along with it. Unless it's like, so insanely stupid that you're just like, no, we're not doing that. But they make for good stories. So just be willing to go in improv in college, which I was, I auditioned many times but never got into the improv team, but that's a story for another time. Still salty. But the thing is, yes, and so if you want to improvise stuff, just try to be as flexible as you can. She's like, oh, okay, you're doing this. All right, well, this happens. So if you can help it, unless it's like really insanely throwing your game off, don't be like, no, you're not, no, that doesn't happen, this happens instead. Just try to go with it as best you can, because the most important thing is about players having fun. So just try to keep it to where it's uh you just go along with what the players want, but don't like negate their choices. So just yes, and like I said, just be prepared for the most outrageous things, or be prepared for the unexpected. Expect the unexpected. That's how the saying goes. So that's my 2 cents. Expect the unexpected.
Nicely put. All right, we have expect the unexpected. What about you, Pete?
I think one of the most important things for both players and DMs alike is patience. Like, DMs have patience with your players have patience for your DMs, but also, like, DMs especially, I think, have patience with yourself. Like, you're allowed to take it slow, you're allowed to learn. If you're in a DM, no one expects you to get it right. And don't be afraid to say to your players, like, give me some time, give me 5 minutes, or we're going to have to end early. Like, that's fine. Cut yourself some slack, give yourself that credit. Like, don't stress yourself out about it.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Cut some slack for each other. Have patience. I like it. What about you, Nathan? Any top tips?
I'm probably gonna say is like if your players are getting off track a bit and they're doing the thing you don't want them to do, but you still find a way to get them onto track to do them the thing they want to do. So maybe just like throw in a random NPC going, you can't do that. There's a limited thing there, or something that makes it work for them to go find the reason and then get into the thing they want to do eventually.
That's I just want to point out that's a really good idea. I did not think to do that, but that is a good idea.
Yeah, I completely agree with it. Well, thank you very much, Nathan. Schnitzel, how about yourself, bud? Any top tips?
As a player, I would recommend ask as many questions as you can think of, even if they're dumb, to your DM, because you don't want to be putting your DM in a position where you think that you assume something and it's wrong, and then you're just changing its entire plan. Just ask questions beforehand, ask them during the week, ask them while it's going on. The more information you have, the more intelligent your decisions can be to make your character more alive than not. So that's what I would recommend.
All right, pretty solid. And Rumpel, how about yourself, bud?
I think just oh god, what's the word? I had so much time to think about it. Be oh god, my brain has drawn a blank. Basically, don't get fixated. There is a word for it, but I can't think of it.
Fixated?
Don't get fixated on your plan. Yeah. If you've got a plan, great, but let your players guide you as much as you're guiding your players. And I think don't be afraid to improvise would be a key point. Don't be afraid to improvise because you'll probably surprise yourself.
Yeah, it's very solid. All right, you guys gave all good, fantastic tips there. My one would be make sure you keep a notepad to hand and make notes, because every little decision, every little act that the players do can always lead to something better that maybe you hadn't thought of previously. But okay, so we're going to wrap up then the topic of prep and improv, and we're going to get to our final segment of the session, which is the quiz known as Mastering the Dungeon. So,
Woohoo!
Oh, God.
this is the bit that
I would like to point out that I am the reigning champion. I've won the past 2 times, I believe.
I'd like
so.
to point out that I'm the dumbest here.
guys, we shall just
My
see
turn
how
now.
well you all do with today's quiz.
Can we have a button test just before it starts? I just want to make sure my spacebar is. Yeah, cool. We're good. Let's go.
Yeah, we've got a couple of buzzers in there straight away, so I'm just going to clear those. Thank you very much, Pete. Clear the buzz again. Right, I'm just going to put the toggle lock on so no one else buzzes in right now. So, this session's questions comes from a small collection of books known as the Young Adventurers Collection. I picked this up on Amazon. This is primarily aimed at a younger audience, so it breaks down a lot of information to its sort of core basics. Well, I found it's really useful, quite handy if you just want to just want to get some little snippets of info. And then if there's something you want to look a bit more in depth, then you can go into things like, Player's Handbook, Monster Manual, that sort of thing. So I've gone through a few of these books, and I've managed to come up with many questions. I also have my moderator, Sarone, in the chat. He has a copy of these as well, so he's keeping an eye on. If any of the viewers would like to take part in this quiz as well, you're more than welcome to. I'll read out the questions, post your answers below. He's going to keep track of it. Whichever viewers ended up doing the best out of the lot, he's going to let me know, and we'll give you an honorary. Thank you.
Honorary grammar
Oh,
lesson.
yes, that word. We're going to give you a shout out. We're going to say congratulations. And you could be our viewer reigning champion. So, guys, let me just go through this a little bit real quick. So, while we'll be playing this, we have the app, buzzin.live. The first person to buzz in gets to answer first. And if they are correct, they'll get a point. Or maybe more, depending on the type of question I've got set up. Failure to answer correctly, or at all when they buzz in, which means then you will no longer be able to answer for that question. This then opens up to then whoever buzzed in next, and so on and so forth until an answer has been given. Unless we go through all of you and no one's been able to get an answer, in which case we just move on to the next one. At the end of all these questions, if 2 or more of you are tied for points, I have a deciding question, and the first person to get it right is going to be declared the winner. So, without further ado, I am going to unlock the buzzer. Please do not buzz unless you're ready to give an answer. Question number 1. The Beholder is an iconic monster in Dungeons & Dragons. It is a creature that floats with a central singular eye and a large mouth filled with teeth. On top of it are stalks with smaller eyes that each fire beams of magic. How many of these stalks do they have? First one goes to Rumpel.
8.
That is incorrect. Now we'll go on to Jason.
Can you see
10?
my buzz just quickly? Because it says
Yes.
I buzzed, but I can't see my name.
Yeah, you're fourth. I see your buzz.
Cool. Just want to check because I couldn't see fourth. I was very confused.
I couldn't see him either.
Jason?
10?
10 is correct.
Yes!
Hey.
Good, because I was going to go with 8. I'm so glad you guessed that.
Practical.
I thought it was good, mate.
There's a strategy to this.
Yes. Right, so. For this, there are multiple answers. And obviously the first one to buzz in is going to be able to go first. And I will give you 30 seconds to answer as many as you can. I will not tell you how many you've got correct because I'm going to then open it up for the next person, and we'll go around the table for each person, obviously depending on the order of who buzzed in. And whoever ends up with the most amount of correct answers will receive 2 points. If there is a tie, you will each of you that have tied will receive a point apiece. So, who can name the 10 spells from a beholder?
All 10.
Or as many as you can. And it looks like Pete's going to go first. Gonna...
I can't name all 10.
No,
but I know there's...
Right, I'm going to start the timer now.
There's an anti-magic zone, a poison one, a paralysis one. What else is there? Oh god, I'm worried that's all I've got. Those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. A fire one, a poison one. I don't know. Just stop me there. I'm done. I've got nothing left. Fire, poison, paralysis, anti-magic zone. I feel like I said something else. Acid? No, I don't think I said that.
Right. So, like you said, you've got the anti-magic zone from the front eye. You've got a disintegration ray. I think there's a banishment on one of them. There's a poison ray, a petrification ray. I'm not sure if there's also a paralysis ray, but I'm going to say that anyway. Is there an acid ray, like an acid splash type thing? No, that's the situation. Is there an ice one, like a freezing thing, like an ice ray?
Be fair, Rumble. God damn.
Oh God. Right. Okay.
Right, sorry, just realised the stream there had me muted. So, yeah, sorry, the 30 seconds were up. I couldn't accept the ice one that you mentioned, but I have I have the ones that you've said so far. Now, we go to the next one, which is going to be Jason. Your time starts now.
Anti-magic, petrification, disintegration, banishment, ice beam, acid splash, poison. Did I say banishment? I'll say banishment. And I'll say teleport. I'm just gonna list out stuff now. Fire, water, wind, earth bending.
That's the end of your timer.
Do I get points deducted if I get one wrong? Because I was just listing out stuff.
It doesn't quite work that way, but...
Does it have a Kamehameha ray?
A dukin.
That's just going. Water.
Right, we're going to reset, and we're going to go with Schnitzel. Your time starts now.
Acid, poison, fire, ice, disintegration, banishment. I think I said acid already. Paralysis, excuse me, petrification, or petrifying, I mean. And then I think there was a anti-magic ray, and I think that's all I think of.
And that's your time. All right, okay, just going to write down...
I feel like this would have been better if the rest of us had like deafened ourselves while the person listed.
Yeah, that was my strategy.
It's literally just everyone saying all the
figured me out.
The person that goes last.
I said like 4, and then the next person repeated.
Why do you think I
and
buzzed
then,
in one of the last places?
added 2 more, and then went again and added 2 more, and it's like, okay, cool. This is a weird. Okay.
Well, that is definitely something I should have thought about. I guess that sort of falls under not prepping. But we will finally go to Nathan. Your time starts now.
Buzz. I didn't even buzz in.
You didn't want to do it? Okay, fair enough.
I didn't buzz in.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Buzz in. Yeah, I can say what everyone else is doing, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna have some integrity and go, I know fuck all.
Fair enough.
It's
So-
Schnitzel, right?
Apologise for my language again.
And so there are 2 players that have got 3 correct, and 1 player with 2 correct, I believe. Yep. No, sorry, 1 player with 1 correct, 1 player with 2 correct, and Pete, what were your ones again?
Paralysis, fucking anti-magic cone. I know I had something else, but it's been a
He
minute and I
said
gave
fire
up.
and poison, I
As-
think.
yeah,
the other
okay.
two.
Yeah.
So,
Fire
Pete,
poison.
you got 1 correct. Rumpel, you got 3 correct. Jason got 2, and Schnitzel got 3. So the 10 spells, and this is going by the Young Adventurers collection, are charm, paralyzation, fear, slowness, innovation, telekinesis, disintegration, sleep, petrification, and death. So
What
that
does innovation do?
Oh wait, I know why. It's because the anti-magic ray isn't one of its stalks; it's its main item.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is a point for Rumpel and a point for Schnitzel.
On the
Let's
board.
go. Let's go. I'm good. You know what the Bible says? Last shall be first.
I'm not
But I
losing
tell
to
you-
a pace.
I tell you what, that does actually. Next time, I think we'll go for do a question like that. I will take on that idea about muting everybody else apart from the person answering, because that's actually a good shout. Because what a lot of you ended up doing was just sort of copying what everyone else was saying, but thankfully, not everyone was getting the right answer. So you were just copying the wrong answers.
You're throwing everyone else off.
But the problem was, if everyone copied all the ones the person in front of them had said, it meant that they not only got all of their correct answers,
Yeah,
but
no,
then if
it's a
they
good
got
shout.
one other answer that was correct, they had more,
It's a good
even
shout.
if they didn't know any of the previous ones.
Yep, it's a good shout. Well, there is the crafty fuck up for today's session. folks.
Therein lies the prep, but it's all good.
I get bonus points
There's
for having
many
integrity
questions
and
left
not
to go.
copying these things.
Right. Next question. What is the range of visibility in 5e for dark vision? Go for Rumpel.
60 feet.
It is 60 feet.
Dang it, as soon as I saw that there were 2 people in front of me, I was like, nope.
Well, my impressive ass left too.
What is the name of the ability used by a dragon turtle where they shoot out a 60-foot blaster? Go for Jason.
Oh crap, what is it called? Dang it, I know what it is.
5
Steam
seconds.
breath.
Steam breath is correct.
Oh, thank goodness.
You are just
I
on
know
the
that because I used it to kill Schnitzel.
you were just on the cusp there of being disqualified.
Oh.
Next question. What are the colours of the heads of Tiamat? Go
no.
for Schnitzel.
Gold.
No.
No.
I had no idea what the answer was. I was just hoping to get
Are you
into
kidding me?
Brilliant. Brilliant.
So that is Schnitzel out of this question. The next one to buzz
Well,
was
it's-
Pete.
It's red, white, black, green, blue.
That is correct.
Ah,
Yeah, I was 100%
I was
going to
thinking
get that.
of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5-headed dragon as well.
For fuck's sakes. Schnitzel,
5-headed dragon
gold?
Yu-Gi-Oh!
Gold? The opposite, like literally the opposite. That's like the platinum dragon, but like the whole point in Tiamat is she's chromatic. That's her whole thing.
Next question. And again, this is from the Young Adventurers collection. What is the average age a dwarf can live to? Go for Schnitzel.
Ooh. 60.
That is incorrect. Jason, you're next.
I'm going to say 80.
That is incorrect. We're going to go to Rumpel.
300.
That is incorrect. We're going to go to Peter.
I'm gonna say like 170.
That is also incorrect. And we're going to go with Nathan.
I'm probably gonna go with 450.
That is also incorrect. The correct answer was 350.
Why get a point for being closest?
I will give you the point for being the closest, seeing as you were only 50 out.
Oh, it was 100 out. I had the 50.
Okay. Next question.
Oh, my bad. My bad.
Bit premature there, buddy.
I'm sorry.
Answer the question without doing it.
Yeah, that means he can't take part in the next question, right?
I haven't,
That's the rules.
haven't even
That's the
asked.
rules.
Haven't even asked the question yet. It's okay.
Mhm.
So, what is the name of the energy that the class known as Monk can harness?
Oh, you bastard.
Go for Jason.
Chi.
I'm sorry?
What's wrong?
Chi.
That is incorrect. Go for Nathan.
Crap. No.
Key, that is correct.
No. Damn it. I knew it. I messed it up.
Fucking hell.
No.
Playing among them, let me down.
Okay, so
Jesus Christ.
these next set of questions is categorized as name the character background. I will read a
God.
description of a background, and let's see if you can work out which one I'm talking about. Your character was raised in a temple and knows the Go for Rumple.
Acolyte.
That is correct. Next one.
I swear I'm like a split second behind every time.
You may come from a small village or far off town, but you're already starting to gain a reputation as... Go for Peter.
Folk hero?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Okay, and the next one. You have lived away from the towns and cities for a long time. Go for Pete.
Hermit?
That is correct.
Oh my.
I'm doing
I'm
a
starting
book
to
order
hate
for
this,
this, so
man.
I actually randomizing.
Okay.
It's not book order.
War has always been a part of... Go for Rumple.
Soldier.
That is correct. And the final one for name the character background. You have grown up away from large populations and you feel most comfortable. Go for
I'm
Nathan.
thinking, don't know why. I buzzed that.
You got nothing, Nathan?
Hermit?
Say that again. Sorry, but you broke up.
Hermit.
We've already had Hermit. I'm afraid that was incorrect. Schnitzel.
The question wasn't even finished. I buzzed it.
Yes, those are
Am I
both.
allowed to ask you to repeat the question because I couldn't quite hear?
I did
But he
not.
didn't finish.
I didn't
that was
finish.
the point.
So I'm afraid
No,
you're going to
I'm
have...
just asking. Did you say small town?
That was a completely different answer.
No,
wasn't it?
that
Question.
was a different. That was from something different. I don't even know if I said. No, I said small village, but that was for the folk hero.
Oh, well, I thought. Okay, my bad. What's left? I'm gonna say renegade because I'm running out of ideas.
I'm afraid that is incorrect. Jason,
Farmer?
that is incorrect. Right, Peter and Rumpel are left. I will repeat the question.
Mhm.
You have grown up away from large populations and you feel most comfortable in the wilderness. Go for Rumpel.
Hunter.
That is incorrect.
Oh.
Pete, it's yours if
Okay.
you can get it.
Is that the full? Is that it?
That's it.
In the wilderness. It's not Oh, Outlander.
That is correct.
Damn. Yeah.
Right. The next one is the next group of questions are categorized light, medium, heavy. I will name an armor. You need to tell me if it
fuck's
is
sake.
light, medium,
Let's start naming
or
our
heavy.
names.
Alright.
Breastplate. Go for Rumpel.
Heavy.
That is incorrect, Pete.
Medium.
That is correct. Right. Just for a bit of context here, by the way, because there's only obviously going to be 3 answers.
Oh, I accidentally pressed space.
Yeah.
Because there's only going to be 3 available answers, I will only take the first 2 attempts. Otherwise, the third attempt has just got to win.
Yeah.
It's just a free answer.
Ring mail. Go for Pete.
Heavy.
Correct.
All I heard was ring, and then it.
That's what I heard too. It cut out.
Scale mail. Go for Rumple.
Medium.
That is correct. Okay. Chain mail. Go for Pete.
Heavy.
That is correct.
Have it, Peter.
I'm using chainmail.
Studded leather arm. Go for Jason.
Light.
That is correct.
Yes.
2 more.
This is crazy.
Splint armor. Go for Rumple.
Light.
That is incorrect. Schnitzel.
Medium.
That is also incorrect. No one, unfortunately,
Yes,
gets this.
it's
one.
heavy, guys. God
Heavy,
damn it.
heavy. I say heavy.
It's
No
7,
one-
It's 17 AC. It's heavy.
Nobody gets that one, I'm afraid.
I've heard of it before.
The
This is you
final.
guys just spamming it to get it right, to get the answer before even listening to what he's saying.
If I don't get it right,
By the
nobody gets it
time it
right.
registers over the internet, he's already asked the question. That's the thing.
And the last one. Padded armor. Go for Rumple.
This has got to be light.
That is correct. Right. The next category of questions is called Magic School. I will name a spell or a cantrip.
Oh wow, okay.
You need to tell me
okay.
Specific.
which school it came from.
Let's go.
Magic Missile. Go for Pete.
Evocation?
That is correct. Invisibility. Go for Rumple.
Abjuration.
That is incorrect. I go to Pete.
Illusion.
That is correct. Cure wounds. Go for Pete.
It's necromancy?
That is not one of the categories. We'll go to Rumple.
That was my answer. Cure wounds
That's correct. Cure wounds.
is. I thought it was necromancy.
Are you getting this from that other book, or are you getting this from 5e?
This is all from the Young Adventurers collection.
I don't know then.
Then we go to Nathan.
I'm gonna go adjuration.
That is incorrect. Jason.
I'm gonna guess.
We're running out of lists. Eventually, you get it.
Medicine.
No.
That's not a school of magic. What?
And Schnitzel.
Herbs.
I hate all of you. There's only one more it possibly could be.
It was
Hogwarts.
evocation.
Oh.
Oh,
Hey!
I'll show
I
you
was
the book
surprised too,
afterwards.
to be
if you-
fair,
I
but
can
it's
show you
like
the book
it's probably
afterwards,
no.
but I've gone through it.
I no, that makes sense because I remember I was looking at it the other day and I was thinking like I remember thinking, why isn't it necromancy? But it's like yeah, other spells are. So yeah,
Next one.
it's all good. I believe you.
Message. Go for Rumple.
Abjuration. It's got to be surely.
I'm afraid that is incorrect. Peter.
It's divination, I believe.
That is also incorrect. Schnitzel.
Ooh,
Innovation.
I'm afraid that is incorrect. Jason.
Did you just say innovation?
Evocation.
I'm afraid not. It's on you, Nathan.
say.
5 seconds.
My brain took a fart. Nope.
Okay, the
fuck,
correct
no,
answer
no.
was transmutation.
some of these are weird. You found some weird
Brain took
ones.
a big old fart.
I know.
I
I
don't
know.
know.
I'm
I-
testing
we're
your.
just-
I'm testing your knowledge.
We're just bad.
We don't
Right,
know spells.
We got two left. Speak with animals. Go for Pete.
Oh my God.
This transmutation.
That is incorrect. We go to Jason.
Evocation.
Incorrect. Go to Nathan.
Adjuration? No, no.
I'm afraid not. Rumple.
Divination?
That is correct.
Ah.
As soon as I said it, my brain went, no, that makes a lot more sense.
And the final one, and this is the final question as well, unless we need a tiebreaker. Web. Rumpel?
Evocation.
I'm afraid not. Jason?
Divination.
I'm afraid not.
I think I know what it is now.
Schnitzel?
Invocation.
It is not. Peter?
Go on, Pete.
I'm gonna.
Can
I've
only
got
be
two
one.
choices. I'm gonna go abjuration.
I'm afraid it's not. Nathan, it's all on you, bud.
God. Transmutation?
It is not. It is.
Is it enchant? That's gone.
It's a conjuration.
Ah, I completely forgot that school of magic existed. To be fair.
Yeah,
Right.
so did I. To be
So-
fair, I was thinking it was transmutation.
Ready for me.
If you guys want to carry on the chat, I'm going to quickly just go through
Oh
here
my
and see what the totals are.
As the
Reigning
former
champion of
reigning
the bottom
champion, I would just like to
field.
say congratulations to Peter because I feel like
don't know.
that was
I don't
pretty-
know. I think Rumple did really well
That's it.
today.
I
Oh,
shall be the reigning
I think it's
champion of the
I think it's
bottom
between me and Rumple, but I think Rumple might have just edged out.
field. Hey, guys,
If you
I'm
beat me
just
again,
very
Pete, I'm gonna
glad-
cry.
Hey, guys,
Well,
I'm just
that's the
keeping
thing.
last
Pete
place
is like
warm.
that's what he reads to go to sleep at night. He just sits there and reads D&D books.
Hey, I read it to wake up. Thank you very much.
Yes.
I read them to wake the fuck up, in fact.
I have D&D
Sorry,
books
keep
I haven't
carrying
even
on. I
read
do
yet.
apologize. For me, I'm
Craft,
sitting
stop
on the
leaving
bottom
us
step.
like this.
I live on the bottom step of last place. This is my home. With my lack of
Jason,
knowledge,
Jason.
I can secure the last place. To be
Jason,
the
we were playing for the belt, weren't we? I feel that was
I mean, that's
brilliant.
how it goes. I mean,
Yeah.
for the reigning
belt.
champion.
I hope you send over that pizza belt to Rumpole, female.
No, this wasn't
Because
for
of
the
it.
pizza champion.
He
Crafty's
just
the
sent
next
the
one
belt.
that gets that
He
shot.
wasn't
Well, that'll be later
specific.
this year on my channel. If he eats the pepper, I mean, who knows? When he goes for that live stream, he could chicken out.
Oh, I'm not chickening out.
Yeah, you only get
I
you only
wanna
get
see
the
those
you only
tears,
get the match
Crafty.
if you eat the pepper.
I'll eat the pepper.
Tears, man.
All right.
I want to see those tears. I want to see you physically cry. I don't know why. I want to enjoy your
All
pain.
the suffering you have imparted upon the
Here's the
party.
I'm
thing,
gonna
though, you
watch
can't
it
just take,
as
like-
you cry in pain.
You
and
can't just take like a
suffering.
little nibble. You have to just
You
you
have
have
to
to
take the
bite
whole bite.
into it. That's
I'm,
the deal. You
I
have to-
want to
Okay.
do it, but I'm scared of shit.
Okay,
Yeah.
guys, I have the tally, and there is no tie this time. There is a
Ooh, I think
winner.
it's Rumple.
Victory for
In
someone, not me.
joint last place.
Oh, take it this
Schnitzel
way.
and Nathan with 1 point apiece.
Oh, come on, this is my seat. Get off my seat. I'm meant to be.
At least
In
I'm not last.
third place with 3 points is Jason.
Yay.
It is between Peter and Rumpel with a 1 point difference.
Oh,
Oh,
Rumpel,
stress.
The
Peter.
suspense.
one of you got 8 points and one of you got 9 points.
Here we go, drum roll.
The master
Hey.
of today's dungeon is Peter with 9 points.
I called it.
Yay.
I'm sorry, Rumple. Hard fought, hard fought.
And is so our new champion, our new
Well done.
master of the dungeon. Congratulations,
Back
Pete.
back in the front seat, guys. I'm back.
congratulations.
There's only so many times I can be called rules lawyer and not do well at these.
If I'm gonna lose to anyone, I'm glad it's you.
Imagine if imagine just one day I win and you're just all like, this is crap. No. I have zero knowledge.
Nathan wins and everybody just refuses to come back. Thanks.
Rigged.
And with that, we are going to be wrapping up this evening's session of Roll for Discussions. Guys, if you'd like to say your goodbyes, Jason?
Go subscribe to my channel because Crafty's about to pass me, and I can't have that.
Pete?
You know, same as usual, guys. If you have any interesting facts, let me know. Hit me up. I'm always interested.
Nathan?
I want everyone to make sure that Crafty does surpass J-Sam, please, and thank you, and also thanks for watching.
Schnitzel?
I think we should have had a game for whoever was actually in last place.
No, who gets the question wrong? Who gets the question wrong?
And Rumpel?
Yeah, thanks for joining us, and come back next week for a good one shot. Hopefully, it will be. It'll be amazing.
Yes.
It will be amazing.
So next weekend we have a couple of things going on. We have to celebrate reaching 1,000 subscribers on the channel of Crafty GG. We'll be taking on the Carolina Reaper Challenge given to me by Jason. Also, Chadstick has offered to take part in this as well, and he is also going to be eating a Carolina Reaper. And then on Saturday, we will be testing out Rumpel's one-shot with a new in-game mechanic he has created in order to deal with siege battles. But more about that another time. Hi, Mags versus Depression. I'm very sorry you've only just joined in just as we are finishing up. I would like to thank all of you who has been and gone or might still be here for watching. If you did enjoy this and you'd like to see more, please hit that like button, smash the subscribe button, share it all with your friends. Until next time, mateys, good night.
Yeah, nah, dude.